Hey everyone, this is the first practice question on inheritance. So if you were in class, I would take the time to explain this and then just let you try and do this on your own, or at least get started on it before I show you the answer. But I'm just going to go ahead and run through it. And if you're watching this, feel free to just pause it by yourself and try and figure it out as you go along. So this one is actually a practice question that's going to combine aggregation and inheritance. So I'm giving you the starting code with book as title, author, and is available. And this is similar to some other past questions that we had done, similar to aggregation, right? Then we're having library member. So they have a name, a list of checked out books, and then they are going to have some methods that will let them check out books. There's some logic to where they can only check out at most 2 books at a time, and they can only check it out if the book is actually available. So that logic is baked in here, and also they can return a book. So if the book is in their list and they try to return it, it marks the book as available again and removes it from their list, and it also prints out a little message there. So we have quite a few books here. We have 10 books there. And what we are wanting to do is now create a new class called premium library members that inherits from library member. We want to give it a class variable that says starting checkout limit of 3 with instance variables for everything from library members, so we can use super to inherit from a library member, as well as a checkout limit that should start out equal to this class variable, okay? And then all time number checked out, which should be 0 to start. So this will keep track of every time they check out a book, it should increment by 1. So make it so that when premium library members check out a book, it uses their checkout limit instead of the default 2 that normal library members have. It should also update the all-time num checked out number each time they successfully check out a book. Create a primary premium library member and show that they can check out 3 books instead of just 2. And then, so let's write this out. And then I have a few bonus improvements here that we can get to as well. But first, let's just start out by typing this out. So we want to do a class, call it premium, okay. Library members. Let me make that singular, and they are going to inherit from library member. Okay. Let's say we have our starting check out limit for 3, and we're gonna define our init. So we're gonna have that. They're gonna have their name, checkout limit, all time num checked out. So we can actually keep that like that and just do self dot check out limit should equal premium library member dot starting checkout limit. Okay, so that just means their checkout limit, instead of just being the like default 2 that the normal library members have, we're just gonna make it 3. Then what else we have? Let's see. Let's do self dot all time num checked out should equal 0, and this should increment every time they check out a book. Okay, so for these premium library members, we're keeping some like data on how many they've checked out in total. We're also eventually going to add some logic that lets them check out more books than normal library members would be able to. Okay, so make it so when premium libraries check out a book, uses their checkout limit instead of the default, and updates the all-time number. So I'm going to write an overridden version of checkout book that lets premium library members check out more than 2 books. So I could actually just copy and paste this, and let's start out doing that. We're just going to copy this one and put it down here. Let me make sure it's indented correctly, And after we do this and we show that it's working, I'm going to come down here to this bonus improvement, and I'm going to see if I can rewrite this code in a way that makes it so I don't repeat nearly all of the code here. So let's try first just making this work. So we could just say, hey, limit equals 2. Well, let's actually just set the limit to be self dot checkout limit. So instead of hard coding a 2 in here, now I'm dynamically pulling whatever the actual limit was, okay? And then we can say, okay, if as long as the length of their books right now isn't above whatever the limit is, and the book is available, they can check it out. Then we also, let me put a little note, dynamically pull in the premium members limit. Then if they are able to check out the book, let's add some logic that would increment the all-time number checked out. Let's plus equals 1 there. Add a number to their all-time count. Okay? So this should work just fine. You'll notice we're repeating most of the logic here. We'll see if there's a way we can get rid of that. There's a few ways you could go about it. But let's just see if this actually works first. So let's how about we make a regular library member? Did we make one yet? Doesn't look like we did. Let's make Jim is a member. Okay, so let's say library member Jim. Let's make Anna, who is a premium member. It's a premium library member. So Anna is over there. So let's say we have Jim, and Jim wants to check out a book, and let's see, we have quite a few of these. So let's try checking out 3 books, but this one shouldn't work. He's a regular member, right? So if I were to set a breakpoint here, because they're regular members, it's going to use the regular checkout book method, right? So I'm instead of library member, which has a hard-coded limit of 2, right? So that's going to work to check that out, as well as that, but this isn't going to work because the limit is 2. Jim cannot check out more than 2 books, okay? But if we have Anna, premium checkout should get to 3. So let's do Anna premium dot checkout book. She should be able to check out book 3 now. But it shouldn't work at 4. So let's do book 4, 5, and 6. Okay. So let's just jump down to here. Okay, so when I step into this, instead of using the library member version, it's going to use the premium library member version, right? So I'm here and I'm using this version, okay? So I'm trying to check out this specific book, and my limit is being pulled from whatever I set my checkout limit to up here, and by default I have it starting at 3, okay? So because my limit is higher, I should be able to check out this 3rd one, okay? I still shouldn't be able to check out this 4th one though, right? I could also, if I wanted to, print out Anna's all-time number checked out, right? So even though I try to check out a 4th one, this should stay at 3. So let's see, yep, that's 3. So I've checked out 3 books so far, okay? So this works perfectly, right? Let's just talk if there's a way you could potentially make this not repeat with super. So one way you could do this, actually, is you could, let's get rid of this functionality, but I'll do this here. We're eventually going to want to add this back in. So let's say we want to add a limit there. You could run super here and then just edit the original version. And we'll come back to here because there might be some problems with that. But we could do this and just also pass in what the limit is. So we could do this and then edit the original function here and just make it so that the default function's limit is 2, and then when we call it, it automatically is going to pass in the limit associated with the premium member. That's one way you could do it. That might be slightly messy, just in the sense that you're then giving the normal library member a chance to change what the limit is when the function gets called. So I might, let's actually write this out. Let's make sure it works. And I think this is a decent solution. So let's make sure this works, and then we'll talk about another possible potential solution that you could do as well. So let's say, where are we at? We're over here. So we're going to get a limit here. We're going to pass that limit in to checkout book. Okay. But, and we also want to increment the number checked out. So that's a key part of this. One complication in calling super here is that there's a possibility that this might not succeed. Like, let's say you try to check out a book that wasn't actually checked out. And if that's true, then you don't want to increment your number that's keeping track of everything that's always been checked out, right? So you could do a few different things. You could set this to return like true if something did check out, and false. In fact, maybe we could do that. That's not a bad way to do it. Let's see, check out this. So this will turn none if it comes down to here. We could just set it to say return true, like that. And then we could actually just come down into here and say if. That seems like a pretty elegant solution, actually. So let's try and see if the code that we have works. So yeah, let's just come down into here to Anna Premium. She's going to try and check out book 3. So let me step into it. Okay, so we're going to get the limit, which is going to be 3. That's how many total she can check out. Then I'm going to call super checkout and pass in my book and my limit. And my limit has a default of 2, but I'm overriding that and I'm setting it equal to 3. So then everything else just works just like we did before. We're not at the limit, so we are going to check this book out. And we're going to print that out. We're also going to return true, which means since this returns true, we're going to go into the if statement and we're going to increment our number there. Okay. So that seemed to have worked. That should work the same way here and here. Let's make sure it's working properly when we try to go past our limit. So let's step into that. So we have our book. Okay. This is available, but we should be already at our limit of 3. Okay, so let's try and do that. Let's step into here. And the length of checked out books is 3, and the limit is 3, and we're equal to it. So we should just be printing this out and then not returning anything. So in fact, it just skipped over everything here. So this should still work where it says our all-time number checked out is equal to 3. So sweet. Cool. So you could just do this where you return true, otherwise turn nothing, or return false. That would work. Another way you could do it is check what the length of their list is before you try to check out a book. And if the list length has increased, then you increment the number. That's another way you could do it. In fact, I think that's the way I did it in my solution that I posted. So that works well. Let's talk about one other potential solution. So if we look down here at bonus improvements, you could use super with an extra parameter or using a function like getAttribute. So I haven't shown you getAttribute, but let's just go through that. So let's see. Let me keep this here because it works. But let me comment it out. And let's say that we want to, oh, not init, sorry. I commented out the wrong one. Let's do this one. Let's copy that out. Let's see. So this is a version without using an extra parameter. So let's say you like the idea of this version, but you don't want to pass in the limit into the function because you don't want there to be the potential for a regular library member to override this limit. Because right now the weakness of this solution is that a normal library member like Jim, they could kind of mess with our logic if they just passed in like 10 here. That means for this run, we're only checking if we're making the limit 10, which probably doesn't make sense. We don't want to give the user maybe that kind of power. So another potential solution is we could just get rid of this. And we still want a limit, but instead of just hard coding it to 2, we want it to be 2 normally. But if there exists this this attribute of the checkout limit, then we want to get that. So we're going to use a function called getAttribute. So what this is taking is we want an attribute, then we want the name that it's going to try and get. And then if it can't find it, then it without an exception was raised in that case. So we should be able to, let's see, I think this should work. So we want the object, let's do self. We're going to check if self includes, what do we call this out? Checkout limit. And then if it can't find it, we want to give it 2. As just kind of the default there. So getAttribute is going to say, hey, does self have an attribute or an instance variable? Those are the same things basically, right? Does it have one called checkoutLimit? If it does, get it and set it equal to limit. If it doesn't, give it 2. Sort of like when you do .get on a dictionary. So that way we are dynamically pulling in a value if our object does have one. Otherwise, just set it equal to 2. So let's make sure this still works. I'm going to set a breakout point here. Let's see this one. We step into it. Okay, so let's try and do that. So that should have given us 2. Yep, awesome. So it couldn't find checkout limit in self because if I hover over self, it doesn't have that attribute in there. It doesn't have that instance variable. So it just uses 2 as its limit, right? So we can do that. We can run through there. That's not going to work like normal. But when we try and do it with a premium member, we come into here. Oh, I can actually just get rid of this line of code. It's running right now, so I'm just going to keep it. This isn't doing anything. But we're going to run the super version. Okay. Go into there. It's going to say, hey, get this attribute if it exists. And what do you know? We got 3. Okay. Because it could find it, because self does have a checkout limit. And since it could find it, it gave it to us over here, which I think is pretty cool. So now we're dynamically using that bigger checkout limit, okay? And it still returns true, so we can add 1 to that. It's going to do the same thing. This should not check out. Still works, and that should accurately still be giving us 3. So I think this is a pretty good solution, actually. So I'm just going to keep it like that. I'm going to keep this if statement, add 1 to it. Okay. Then let's see. And then number 2, these are just bonus improvements. Really, if you could do everything here and you just did the version where you just copy and paste this, but you just set the limit to be something different, that would work totally fine. You do perfectly well on any assignment or midterm. These I'm just kind of trying to expand, show a little bit of extra functionality that you could potentially put in there, right? So for this one, let's just add another method called calculate checkout limit that increases the checkout limit by 1 each time a premium library member checks out 4 books. So if they've checked out 4, their limit should be 4, okay? If they've checked out 8, their limit should be 5. If they've checked out 12, their limit should be 6, etc. Okay? So let's see here. Let's call it calculate checkout limit. So basically every time they check out 4, we want to bump up their limit by 1. So let's make a function for this. And let's see. So how would we do this? We want to check their all-time number checked out, because every time they get past 4, we want to increment this by 1, right? So we could divide this. So let's say self all-time num checked out, right? So it's almost like we want to divide it by 4 and see what the result is. We could just do floor division though, right? So let's say if we did, let's say this all-time number was checked out was like 2. Right, it would be 2, floor division 4, that would be 0. Once they get up to 4, that should be 1. Because if you remember floor division, it just rounds down. If we have like a result of this is like 3.9, it just rounds it down to the nearest integer of 3, okay? So it should only give us a whole number every time we increase by an amount of 4, okay? So every increase of 4 should give this result a boost of 1, right? Okay, so let's say we're going to do this. We can call this something like boost amount, okay? And then we're storing the starting limit of 3, okay? So we could say, so the new amount, we can actually just put it into checkout limit. We want the checkout limit to equal what the starting limit is plus the boost amount. Okay, then we actually want to check whether they should get an increased limit every time they check something out, right? Because let's say they do check out 4 books. Once that occurs, we want to automatically increase their limit. So we actually could update our checkout book right here and say, hey, self, calculate checkout limit. Let's do that. So let's think about this. If the first 3, they're able to check out, Anna isn't going to be able to check out a 4th book until she returns 1. So let's update this and let's have Anna return a book. Let's have her return book 3, okay? So returns a book should now be able to check out a 4th book, 3 currently, right? She should have, once she does this, she should have 3 currently in there. But once she checks out her 4th of all time, right, it should bump up her amount to where she should be able to check out an additional book. So let's try and do that. Let's try and check out book 7. Oh, let's actually write this correctly. Check out book And I'll run this, and then I'll walk through what's actually happening in this function, if that's been a little bit confusing. So let's see, all time num checked out. Let's actually maybe even do this, because at this point it should be 3. Should be able to check out 4 at this point, right? Okay, so let's get rid of that. Let's see actually if our code works. Okay. So let's just even step into that. We're going to try and check out a book. It should work. So we're going to increase our num checked out. For this first time, we're going to calculate checkout limit. So let me actually just put this in watch so you can see what's going on there. So this should be 0. Yeah, 0. Because we have, it's essentially as if we were doing 1 divided by 4, right? Which gives us 0.25, but floor division is rounding down to the nearest integer, which in this case will be 0. So we're not going to boost it at all this time. We're just going to keep this at the starting number plus 0. We're not increasing it at all, because we're not going to actually get up to 4 until we're not going to get up to 1 until we reach 4, because 4 divided by 4, with floor division, that's still going to be 1, right? And we're not going to increase that until we get to another multiple of 4, until we get 8 divided by 4 would be 2, right? So that's how that works. So we're not increasing our limit yet, but we should, once we return a book here. We've done 3 all time, but Anna's list of checked out books is 2 right now, which means we should be able to check out another book. But our all time that we've checked out is now 4. Okay. I probably should have gone in fact, let me actually get to that point again, because that's the key point that we want to reach, right? Okay, because we now are checking out our 4th book. Let me go through there. So all time num checked out. We've now checked out 4. So let's go into our little function here. So all time num checked out is 4 divided by 4. That's going to give us a 1. Okay. So now we are boosting our amount from the starting limit. We're adding 1 to it. So now our checkout limit should be fundamentally different, right? We should be able to go into here. And what is our checkout limit? Yeah, it's 4. So this should work. And it does indeed. Okay, so this is a bit of a longer example. I also want to reiterate again that what we did initially would be enough. If this was all I asked you to do, you wouldn't have to do some of this extra stuff with super, or do something with like get attribute, though I think the solution is really good, actually. I'm not repeating any code. I'm not exposing my method to have changed functionality to the original library member. But I create that flexibility for premium library members. So I think this is a good solution. And we'll just stop there, and then we'll go on to this next practice in the other file, which actually is much easier. Maybe I should flip the order of these, actually. But cool. We'll see you in the next video.